I'd like to call the September 3rd meeting of the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors to order. Ms. Steele, will you call the roll?
Mr. Gibson?
Here.
Dr. Orth? Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Hutson?
Here.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Here.
Mr. Bazzani?
Here.
Mr. Nicosia? Here. All present.
I'd like for you all to join Pastor Susan Boyd of Rock Church and student pledge leader, Rock Church, to the invocation.
Father, we just thank you tonight in the name of Jesus that we're all here together in a heart of unity, Lord, to lift you up, God, and to bless our county. Lord, we just thank you for every person present. We pray for our leaders, and Lord, we just thank you for the wisdom, God, that you're giving them to lead our county. And we thank you, Lord, that every concern, every issue that's brought before them tonight, Lord, that will be met and satisfied. God, we just thank you for each and every one here, and we give you praise and glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Now, if you'd all join me in welcoming Perry Ray. She's an 8th grade student at Page Middle School. She's a member of the Page Ambassadors. She's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from March 21st, March 27th, April 2nd, April 8th, and April 16th.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Next item is the adoption of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Next item is matters presented by the board. Dr. Orth? Oh, Mr. Gibson.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take a minute to recognize 2 county employees. I have the privilege of serving on the Historical Committee and the Tourism and Parks and Recreation Committee, and I've been very impressed with, first I'll take the Historical Committee. Robert Kelly leads our efforts in the county to promote the rich history of our area, and there have been a number of wonderful programs that he has led, most recently Lafayette reenactor at the courthouse. He's also made significant upgrades to our local museum, and so I just want to commend Mr. Kelly for the great work he's doing. And then in the tourism front, Susan Ammons is just doing an amazing job. She brings so much energy to the position. And for those of you who haven't seen it yet, the Visit Gloucester new logo for the county is really, really well done. And you can check it out on Facebook. But she just brings a lot of energy and passion to the job, and I think it's great for our county and will bring more tourism to our area. So I just wanted to commend Mr. Kelly and Ms. Ammons for a job well done.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move to county administrator items. Ms. Steele?
Well, speaking of the 2 of them and adding Quentin Shepard, I think that gives like a full house or something. Wanted to mention, because they've been helping in particularly community engagement leading up plans for our Gloucester Day. So this Saturday, we'll have tours at the museum in the court circle that will start at 11, and then at 12 o'clock we will be on live with 2 of our other Gloucesters, Gloucester Township, New Jersey, and also Gloucester, England. So if people want to come up and participate on the live feed, they can come to the courthouse, and otherwise there'll be links that'll be on social media, and we hope that people all around the world will join us. Very proud to say that a presentation will be made in the near future at a board meeting from the Virginia Association of Counties presenting the same department, community engagement, and the county with a VACO award for modernizing the beehive, and they've done a fantastic job with that. The VACO awards are extremely competitive, and it's an honor for the county to receive that. And then lastly, I just wanted to remind people that upcoming event of the United Way Day of Caring, which will be on September 20th. And there are a number of individuals and organizations that will be helping, and you can go online and register and help with projects that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Steele. There's no scheduled presentations. Let's move to the citizen comment period. We have 2 public hearings, so if you'd like to speak on anything other than the public hearings, please come forward, state your name and magisterial district, and 3 minutes, please.
Okay. I'm really getting awfully tired of being the only one who's speaking, however. I live here and I care about this county a great deal. I see the county eroding into Norfolk or Hampton or Newport News. You know, I grew up in Arlington, and Vienna, when I lived there, was a peach orchard. You can't find a peach in Vienna now, unless it's in the grocery store. Sprawl, urban sprawl, is what you guys are ruling on in Gloucester, and it's not good. It's not good for the county. If you like urban sprawl, there's plenty of property up in Vienna you can go move. Norfolk, Hampton, Newport News, but when you widen the road to 3 lanes and the bridge to 3 lanes and take the toll off, you're just going to have the big mess. The whole place is going to look like. And 17 is not going to be enough, because you have friends who are builders and they want to build. They want to make the money. They want to take the land and build on it. And then 17 is not enough, and they got to go down the side streets. They got to go down Woods Crossroads. They got to go up 14. It's never going to be enough. And it's very, very sad to see it go. Very sad. So I just want you to know that I wish you would either curtail your greed and your builders' greeds and your real estate agents and lawyers' greed, and think about where you're living and how it affects the people also who live here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Would anyone else like to come up and speak?
Nathan Brown from the Ware District. I don't know if any of y'all are sewer or water customers, but the HRSD, they raised the rates in July another 9%. It's becoming unaffordable, especially for people that don't even make, Gloucester people don't make as much money as they do over the river. And I mean, it's only, people don't have so much money, and they can only spend so much money for sewer. And it hurts the businesses that have to pay these outrageous sewer bills too. And we're not getting good service from these people. There's a pressure problem on the line that the county's pump stations go into, and the businesses and citizens go into, and they won't do anything about it. They just don't care. So I think you ought to advocate for the citizens to say, what are you going to do about this? Because, the utility department, they're not going to listen to them. But if y'all put pressure on them, maybe they will start doing some stuff and stop just raising the rates to spend money wherever they spend it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Would anyone else like to come up and speak? Okay, we'll close the citizen
Mr.
comment.
Chair,
Oh, that's right, we have one.
I have one comment that was submitted from Marcia Berman from the Abingdon District. Members of the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors, I'm disappointed in all of you for giving the Gloucester Volunteer Fire and Rescue complete autonomy in the selection of a site for their new fire station. I find it troubling that you, as a stakeholder and representative for the citizens of Gloucester, would not seek the best available data from which to base your decisions. The project is estimated to cost upwards of $12 million. I suspect some of that will come from taxpayers' dollars. Regardless of who pays, the project impacts all who reside here, govern here, pay taxes here, own businesses here, and ultimately rely on the services of GVFR to respond in the event of an emergency. The partners on this project should want to be informed. Seeking expert advice through a study is the pathway to that end. Since the GVFR currently owns at least 6 lots on Main Street and 2 on Walker Avenue, I think it would be difficult for them to be completely impartial in the decision process. They may have put the cart before the horse when making their real estate investments, which is exactly why they don't want a study. Indeed, they can report statistics on their call and the response times. These data will be invaluable to a study. However, they are not experts on all facets of public safety, projecting community growth, evaluating transportation patterns, disruption to cultural resources, or environmental risks that must also be considered. A wrong decision and everyone loses, including GVFR. At the meeting on August 6th, one representative of GVFR noted that last year the station responded to 473 calls from 6 specific locations, stating these were all within the courthouse. While it sounded like a compelling argument, 77%, or 363, of the calls he referenced are located immediately north of the hospital or within the hospital complex itself, easily accessible from Route 17. Nobody is arguing that minimizing response time is essential and must be considered in site location. Also important is public safety as trucks enter and exit the facility and the ability to avoid congested street areas en route from the facility. Does the village on Main Street fit that criterion? Has anyone considered the change in the character of the courthouse, as the new fire department will overwhelm everything else on Main Street? Let an expert help us decide. If the GVFR is confident they selected the best site, there should be no opposition to a study on their part, and rather than conceding to them, you should uphold your responsibility to constituents, reverse your decision, and require a study to ensure that a decision of this magnitude is being made to serve the best interests of the citizens of Gloucester. Should the study recommend construction of the new station where the GVFR hopes to build, at least you can say you made an informed and impartial decision. Sincerely, Marcia Berman. Those are all the comments submitted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Cronin. Next item is going to be the public hearings. The first one is a public hearing to revise and update Gloucester County zoning ordinance. Ms. Rizzio.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So I'm here to do a brief I don't know how brief it is, but an overview of the zoning ordinance update, highlighting the important items that we think the public will be interested in and y'all might want to be reminded of. So this was a 5+ year endeavor. We've been meeting monthly at the Planning Commission meetings, and we've met quarterly with you at 15 joint meetings with the Planning Commission to go over a lot of the changes. A lot of them are ones that were supported and requested by the public as well. So the presentation, I'm going to go over those hot topics, the one that received a lot of discussion, just so everybody's aware of what is actually being proposed, the goals of the zoning ordinance update, overview of our outreach activities to date, summary of the other key changes that we want to make everybody aware of, and then next steps. First, zoning districts are just that. They're not flood zones or evacuation zones. They dictate minimum lot sizes, setbacks, and what uses are and are not permitted in the district. No rezonings are proposed. However, there is one parcel zoned RMX. That district is a mixed-use district that is being combined with our other mixed-use district, B2, so that RMX parcel is proposed to change to a B2 district. But other than that, everything else is staying exactly the way it is currently zoned. Farming, a lot of concerns about taking away farmers' rights. So currently, the county has 2 agriculture districts. It's the white areas and the blue hatched areas on the map. Agriculture is permitted by right in these, and it's protected by state code. And it's all kinds of agriculture, including intensive feedlots. We have 2 rural residential districts, SC1 and C2. Currently, there's a lot of farming that happens in these districts because it has historically happened in these districts. There's also a lot of residential subdivisions in these districts. So when zoning was implemented, a lot of those farming areas turned into our residential districts, where farming is currently not permitted at all. If you're not currently doing it, you haven't historically done it and kept doing it, when you come in and want to do farming, we have to say no. So this SC1 is one of our districts, the rural residential. It's the yellow areas, and then C2 is the green areas. So the proposal is to permit agriculture in these districts by a special exception process. So it's actually giving back farmers' rights. This doesn't apply if you're doing a home garden. This is just for commercial type farming. So currently in the C2 and SC1 district, you can do aquaculture by a special exception, which is one public hearing, $275 fee in front of our BZA. You can do agriculture or agritourism by special exception. However, you cannot do agriculture or a farm winery, brewery, or distillery. So those two uses we are proposing to allow by special exception. So this is a use table showing all the agriculture uses in the districts in which they are permitted. And you'll see the highlighted boxes as residential districts. So you'll see the special exception process is proposed. Whereas in our ag districts, all those uses are permitted by right. Fees. We're not proposing to increase any fees. They're staying the same. They're proposed to be pulled out of the zoning ordinance and have a separate fee schedule, which is one resolution in your packet. We are proposing one additional fee for zoning verification letters. These are typically letters requested by banks for financing purposes. They can take a lot of staff time, so we're proposing a fee of $100 for that letter. Camping received a lot of discussion. So the way the zoning ordinance currently is written, the definition for campground includes a commercial campground as well as camping for your personal use and enjoyment. So we revised the definition, separated out personal camping from the commercial type camping so that you can camp on your property per the zoning ordinance within certain time restrictions. So it's no more than 1 week at a time or 30 days in any calendar year. You do not have to get a zoning permit to do this. We did clarify that in the ordinance. A zoning permit is not required to do this. You're just required to stay within those time constraints. And then the campground use is proposed to be a conditional use permit, whereas currently it's a special exception. And when zoning was first written, there was not the CUP process. The CUP process is a more in-depth process. It's a review by the Planning Commission and then the board, whereas the BZA is just one public hearing. So we felt that those uses that required more look from elected officials would switch to a CUP process for approval. So revisions, why did we endeavor on this? One was to make some changes that we felt were needed. The other was to simplify the ordinance, modernize, clarify, and implement the goals of the comprehensive plan. This is our current use table that you are probably familiar with. It's not very user-friendly at all. Uses are not listed in alphabetical order. The individual uses have different lot sizes and width requirements, and there's this column all the way at the end that has miscellaneous requirements that gets missed a lot and is confusing. So this is going away, and hopefully very much more user-friendly table and ordinance is being adopted. The other goal of the overwrite or rewrite was to implement the provisions in the comprehensive plan, which is a community's vision. So preserving our rural character, supporting healthy neighborhoods, and encouraging economic development, and promoting a thriving historic core. So all those are visions that the zoning ordinance seeks to implement. Those visions are the same as identified in this 3-year strategic plan the board has for 2018, with one additional one of removing unnecessary regulations. So these were the lens with which we reviewed the zoning ordinance to see what we could change to make sure we were encouraging implementation of our comp plan and removing unnecessary regs. Throughout the 5+ year process, we did multiple Beehive articles. We had a public input survey that had over 700 responses. We put inserts in tax bills. We did a couple podcasts. And at the end of 2022 in November, we had 3 public open houses and had people come out. And then, as I'm I'm sure you're aware, prior to the Planning Commission's public hearing in July, we mailed out letters to every property owner. And we received about 270 individuals that called us or made comments. Most of the people were just calling to find out what was happening, and we just explained what was going on, and they kind of went on. Their questions were answered. Others came to the public hearing for the Planning Commission and provided comments to us. So key changes. This table is on our website, and it shows kind of those major changes. Zoning is complicated, so I'm going to go over the changes. But for districts, there's 1 conservation district, 2 ags, 5 residential, 1 mixed use, several business and industrial, and there's some overlay districts. So minor changes, like we removed the minimum lot sizes in our business districts and our conservation district. We don't see a need to set a minimum lot size, let the use determine that. Everything else will be covered mostly on my other slides. However, we do want to say that the minimum lot sizes and building heights and setbacks for residential districts have not changed, or not proposed to change at all. One major change to the districts I want to point out, I don't know if it's major, but it's definitely different. In our B2, which is our village business, and it is highlighted here on the map. I don't think my pointer works and doesn't work. The bubbles on the right, mostly in our courthouse, village area, and in the point is where our B2 parcels are. Currently, you can only do residential dwelling units in association with a commercial business. The proposal is to allow that by right without a business, other than along Main Street in the courthouse area. Along Main Street, at least 50% of your first floor has to be in some type of office, institutional, or commercial use. But down on the point, if you want to just do residential, you could. So we're adding the uses single-family attached and multifamily dwelling to that district by right. And up to 8 dwelling units per acre is proposed. Up to 12 with the CUP was proposed, but the Planning Commission recommended removing that aspect of the proposal. So to give you an idea of what the heck those 8 dwelling units look like, the top left is approximately 4 dwelling units per acre. It's York River Villas down at the point. Coleman's Crossing is about 6 dwelling units per acre. And then Riverbend Apartments, not in actuality because they have open space, that's not included in that. But if you just were to draw a box around the Riverbend Apartments, that would be at approximately 6 dwelling units per acre. So townhomes generally are going to fall within that 8 dwelling unit per acre. And this is just images of what that might look like. So 5 to 8 dwelling units per acre is typically townhomes. Somebody could do multifamily, but they'd have to be stuck to 8 dwelling units per acre. And the light blue on the maps are where that B2 district is located. So we looked at about how much residential density or how many dwelling units could you add if every B2 parcel went to the 8 dwelling units per acre. So looked at the B2 parcels. There are 307 B2 parcels. Some of them are very small parcels. The average acre of a B2 is about 0.72 acres. The total acreage of developed B2 parcels, so the 220 total acreage of B2, 170 of that is currently developed with some type of use. If every B2 parcel stopped what they were doing and did the residential density dwelling at up to 8 units per acre, you could expect about 1,760 additional dwelling units. However, that's not realistic. That's not going to happen. You maybe could assume that every undeveloped B2, if they went to up to 8 dwelling units per acre, that would be 400 dwelling units addition to the county. This bottom row is going up to 12, which the Planning Commission recommended not moving forward with. But that would give you, if everybody did 12 that was currently undeveloped, it would go up to 600 dwelling units. This is the one parcel that is zoned RMX that we're proposing to change to B2. There is an existing approved site plan. The RMX district allows up to that 16 units per acre. So they have an existing site plan approved for residential. It is valid until 2025 if they want to move forward with that. The PC, as I said, recommended the B2. The owner had maybe requested big B1, but I think he's okay with B2. Right now, his representative may make some comments during public comment period. B1 and B2 allow a lot of the same uses. However, B2 is more restrictive related to automobile uses and drive-through restaurants. And B2 is less restrictive related to residential dwelling units. So it's truly that mixed-use type district. So key changes related to uses. So we looked at every use, we looked at the definition of the uses, and as I said earlier, we kind of changed those uses that we felt you all would want to determine. We made CUPs, and the ones that were less intensive, like a kennel, or a commercial communication tower, like a cell tower, we left as special exceptions. So we went through all the uses and made some changes, mostly in the less restrictive avenue. We also reviewed and created a list of all of our supplementary regs. So in addition to the district regs, certain uses such as cell towers have additional regulations that apply to them. So there's 9A through 9E articles of supplemental regs that we just really organized the ordinance so they all would make sense and fall into these. So 9A is all district regulations. 9B is those uses with additional regulations. 9C, screening and buffering. So when you ever have a commercial use adjacent to a residential use, they have to do screening and buffering. And 9C comes into play. 9D is our temporary uses, where that camping for personal use and enjoyment, that's a temporary use is housed. And then we have just other regulations. There have been, so on those supplemental regs, or in those supplemental regs, is home occupations. Home occupation is an accessory use of a residential property, which is a business owner's bona fide residence. There's two types. Type 1 is by right, means they just have to come into the office and get a zoning permit. Type 2 is by special exception, so it goes to that BZA. And the proposed regulations do allow more flexibility for home occupations related to outside storage, operations, and commercial vehicles. So this slide details those proposed changes. So currently, for type 1 home occupation, there can be no outside storage and no outside operations. The proposed regulations will allow for lots that are greater than or equal to 5 acres in our ag districts and our rural residential districts to have up to a ½ acre of outside storage and or operations, provided it's not visible from the property line. So they would just have to screen it, but they are allowed to do it by right. For commercial vehicles, type 1, currently only 1 commercial vehicle is permitted, and it cannot be a large vehicle such as a dump truck or a tractor trailer. The proposed regulations allow up to 2 commercial vehicles, and one of which can be a dump truck or a tractor trailer, provided the lot is at least a ½ acre or bigger. And then for those type 2 regulations, so the ones that are not permitted by right, currently the only thing you can request a type 2 for is if you want to have customer or employee traffic come to your home. The proposal will allow somebody to ask for a special exception to do a variety of things, to have customer or employee traffic, to have outside storage or operations beyond what is currently permitted, to have more than 2 vehicles, 2 commercial vehicles out the house, at the home residence, or to do something that may create noise or offensive odors. So the special exception, adjacent property owners get notified of the request, and they get to provide input into that. So for livestock, private use and enjoyment, currently the way the regs are written, it is based on the number of animals. So every animal and different animals have different acreage requirements. And you can include the yard around the house. And it's very complicated to figure out what you can have. And animals multiply and go away, and it's very hard to regulate. So the proposal, and we worked with animal control on this, the proposal is to just have a minimum lot size required, and the additional animals are based on additional acreage. So you can have so many animals if you have 2 acres, and then if you want more, you have to have more acreage. Just making it simpler. And then same thing with stables commercial. Currently 1.5 acres per horse is required, and the proposal is to just require 2 acres minimum. And we're widening the definition. It currently just says horses, but not only are horses kept at commercial stables, ponies, donkeys, mules, and the like. The one change that is more restrictive to stables is in our SC1, it's currently a permitted by right use. The proposal is to require a special exception for that use. Freight containers for storage. I think this and home occupations were the two most discussed topics. We do get a lot of complaints about freight containers, and this is where we landed, the Planning Commission and Board. So currently, for agriculture, industrial, and commercial zoned parcels, they are permitted accessory use and there's no limit on the number. That's proposed to stay the same. In our B2 district, which is that village mixed use district, currently they're permitted, there's no limitations. The proposal is to not allow them in that district. And this is not freight containers if you're modifying it and living in it, or if you're doing it, this is just using a freight container for storage. In our residential districts, currently they are permitted 1 on lots less than 2 acres, 2 on lots between 2 and 5 acres, and 5 on lots greater than 5 acres. The proposal is to not allow them in our single-family residential district, in our multifamily residential district, or on lots less than 2 acres. So not allowing them in those areas. And then in other residential districts, allowing 2 to 5, if you have 2 to 5 acres, you can have 1. And if you have 5 or more acres, you can have up to 3.
Ms. Rizzo.
Ms. Rizzo,
Mr. Bazzani.
real quick. Since I recognize one of the containers, because that's just near my house, are these folks grandfathered in? Are they going to be required to remove them because of this ordinance change?
No, we
They're
will not
grandfathered.
require them to
Okay.
remove them. Do you want to clarify that? Sorry. Yeah, so they have a zoning permit. Yeah, if there's a complaint and they're in violation, then we will have them removed. But if they're permitted legally, like if somebody came and got a permit on a lot less than 2 acres, and we're not going to go say, now you have to remove it. If it was permitted legally, it's still allowed.
What about the individuals now that have storage containers on their property and somebody complains? Is the county going to make them remove them?
Yeah, we have to research if it was done legally, how it was done, and if it was permitted.
Well, we had no regulations really until this one, right? So these people would probably be grandfathered in. I mean, all they've done is locate a storage container and put things in it, so it's a storage facility. But then even though some neighbor may, I'm sorry, thank you so much. Neighbors may complain and say, I don't like the looks of that thing near my house. And is the county going to go back and enforce the new regulation that says you can't have these kind of containers on your property?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Mr. Wilmot.
if you were to adopt this more restrictive regulation, we would not apply it to currently existing storage containers. So the one on the right is the one near you. So if that one is there legally now, if it is there legally now, it will stay legally there, unfortunately or unfortunately. So notwithstanding the new regs. If they didn't get a permit for that, or if it doesn't currently meet the required setbacks, then we could enforce the regulations as previously written. So it's all dependent upon, is that legal now? If it's legal now, it will still be legal.
So there is a permitting process to bring a storage container onto your property before this ordinance change, that you had to go back and get a permit of some sort, right? Where is that? Where would that be located in our ordinance that we had to get a permit?
9-3.
Okay. So I agree with you, Mr. Wilmot, but what if, again, someone they've done the permitting, and they've done everything legally they were supposed to do, and now all of a sudden someone's complaining, say, I don't like that container, I don't like the line of sight of it, and I want it removed.
I feel for them, but that's a shame. It's too bad.
Okay.
Okay, common open space. Common open space is open space within a development or subdivision that is not part of individually owned lots and available to everybody's use and enjoyment, all the residents. Currently, there's no requirement for open space in new residential development. It's just recommended. So the ordinance proposes a requirement, and it's based on the lot size as far as how much open space is required. So, and it only applies to new single-family developments that are greater than 50 lots. So if you have the smaller lots, 10,000 square feet lots, you're required to provide 10% open space. Whereas if you have a 2-acre plus lot, you don't have to do any common open space. So it's a tiered approach based on the square foot of the lots. And for townhomes and multifamily developments, new ones, if you have more than 35 units, you have to provide 10% in open space. The next topic is related to notifications for uses that are proposed along private roads. State code requires us to notify adjacent property owners when there's a rezoning, conditional use permit, or special exception proposed. A lot of parcels are served by private roads, and those private roads are or are not very well maintained by individuals along the roads. So the proposed ordinance would require us to notify not only adjacent parcels to the proposed use, but anybody that would use that private road so that they can help in making a decision on what happens on a road that they use and or have to maintain. So this is an example. This is Water's Edge Lane down at the point. So if somebody wanted to do something, a home-based business that required a special exception or an event venue at the end here, because this is a private road, not only would these state code just requires these parcels to be notified, we would notify everybody along that private road. Article 6 is our historic overlay district. We weren't proposing any changes to that. The historic overlay basically is a set of additional regulations if you want to add a structure, remove a structure, change a structure. There's 18 properties currently listed, and they're the little brown polygons on here. However, one person came in and wanted to be added to the list, so we have added them. There are 35 total sites listed on the Virginia Department of Historic Resources list that could be added. So we sent a letter out, worked with the director of the museum to send a letter out to all those parcels to see if they wanted to be included. We have not heard from anyone yet. But if they do, we can always add them with a code amendment later. Article 6A is our Highway Corridor Development District. In addition to other things, this district does require sidewalks along all street frontages within our designated village areas. So we have the Courthouse Village and the Point Hayes Village that are outlined on this map, and then one potential village area in the middle, right there. As you know from the rezoning last month, a lot of development is heading further south along 17. The current requirement for sidewalks only goes to Fleming-Riley. The multimodal planning study that we did probably a year and a half, 2 years ago now, a lot of the people that commented on that wanted, Route 17 was the main corridor they wanted to have pedestrian and bicycle facilities on. It's very, very expensive, as you know, for the county to go back and implement sidewalks. It's much easier as development happens to have the developer do that. So our staff's proposal was to extend the requirement for sidewalks down to T.C. Walker. And just a discussion, so during the rewrite, staff and the planning commission did discuss regulating food trucks, portable vending, porta potties, short-term rentals. However, it was decided to not regulate these items specifically. Porta potties are regulated by the health department and building code in general. Food trucks can't stay in one location, they have to move around. They're required to get a peddler's license. So they're regulated in some way, but not in zoning and not proposed to be in zoning. And short-term rentals are just single-family residences.
Mr. Bazzani.
So the one issue I see here are, we talked about this before, is the Airbnbs that are currently in existence right now in our county. We have no regulations regulating those, right? So, I mean, any homeowner can then just decide, I want to put an Airbnb here, and now you've got additional traffic going to these homes. And should we consider some kind of regulatory requirements for Airbnb development? We've got 2 in my neighborhood.
Yeah, I know we had many discussions about it. I think board, I don't know, Ms. Steele figured out how many there were in the county. We looked at complaints, and we haven't gotten a complaint about an Airbnb in quite a while. So it's kind of the You guys just decided to not do it right now, which is probably what I would recommend. And then so changes Articles 10 through 15, so 10, 11, and 12. 10 deals with nonconformities, 11 is parking, and 12 is signs. We only reduced regulations in these districts, and 11 and 12 are going to be rewritten. That's on the future work plan once this gets done, so those will come up at some point in our priority list. But for parking, we currently regulate drive-through order boards. We don't need to, so we remove that. For signs, we're increasing the allowable signage on a residential parcel. So really just reducing regulations there. Administrative bodies is just what all the administrative bodies, the Planning Commission, the BZA, and the zoning administrator do. We just revised that for clarity with state code. And Articles 14 is administrative procedures, and 15 is enforcement. So again, just reorganizing for clarity in state code, adding procedures that we do in the office that might be nice for somebody to know when they're proposing something. And then one new item related to traffic impact analysis. So what's a TIA? A traffic impact analysis is a study that projects, evaluates, and identifies ways to mitigate the impact of traffic proposed or generated by a proposed development. The county doesn't have any regs. We rely on state's regs for TIAs, which only applies if there's a rezoning, and the threshold for the trips that have to be triggered before a TIA is required is 5,000 daily trips. And 400 plus when that amount exceeds the amount of traffic on the adjacent road if it's a residential development. If it's non-residential, 5,000 average daily trip. If it's residential, 400 plus. So the proposed regulations on the county side, we're proposing to require it not only for rezonings, but CUPs and special exceptions, and lower the threshold from 5,000 average daily trips to 2,500, and do the same for residential. So 2,500 daily trips or 250 peak hour trips or more. And beside that are the businesses that would be impacted. So discount retail, 70,000 square feet at the 5,000 ADT level. So that would reduce it if you wanted to do a rezoning for a discount retail and you had 30,000 square feet or 32,000 square feet or more, you would trigger a TIA. Okay. Or if you had a restaurant with over 200 seats, you would trigger it. So big business more than small business.
Mr. Bazzani.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really quickly, an update on the development that's going near the Lowe's, the 1,100 homes under the old Barons. What's the status of that? No, nothing's going on that property. Is there something you can share with the public on that or not?
Yeah, I think Ann has a little update. Good evening. I talked to the developer. We met with him regarding his final plat for phase 1, and I asked him what was going on, and he's having some issues with his wetland permit. They found a threatened species on the site, and so he's working with the, I guess, DEQ to mitigate the impacts. So my understanding, until he figures that out, he's not moving forward with further construction.
So it's not a financial funding issue then?
He didn't indicate that. He said it had to do with his wetland permit.
Okay, thank you.
I think this is my last slide. So next steps, there's a public comment period, and then after that, either approve it as drafted, approve with changes, or send it back to the Planning Commission for more revisions. Any questions for me before?
Any questions for Mr. Rizzio? All right. This has been properly advertised, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
You have 3. Okay. Let's open up the citizen comment period. If anybody would like to come up and speak on this topic, please come forward. State your name and magisterial district, please. Limit your comment to 3 minutes if you can.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Donald Whiting. I think I'm looking at the slides, B2, Guinea Road, down by, make a left on Guinea Road, going south on 17. Is that B2? I would assume. I'd first like to start off saying, well, thank you for having me here. I did find out about this meeting last minute. I don't know how you actually publicize meetings, but I was directed to go to a website, and it was very difficult even finding it. I had to call the zoning office to navigate to it. So I don't know how Reason I'm here, I'm a 1980 graduate of Gloucester High School. I actually recognize Bob Orth. I used to work with the Abingdon Volunteer Rescue Squad long time ago. My dad was also Donald Whiting. He was the first deputy sheriff of color, I think is the right way of putting it, in Gloucester. I've seen Gloucester grow, however, not at the pace like I see the rest of the world. I'm trying to stick to my little notes here, but I am a graduate of 1980 Gloucester High, retired military. I'm a Gulf War vet, Purple Heart recipient. I've traveled the world. I've seen areas and communities that have just been totally governed by government. And I'm seeing that happening here in Gloucester, and that's why I came out here tonight to speak. Not only am I retired military, I'm also retired from other government law enforcement agencies, FBI, DEA, and I retired out of CIA. Again, I've traveled the globe, and I've seen what's going on here. Government, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing, are supposed to represent the people, not the other way around. What I'm seeing here just in this committee is we're setting standards and goals and objectives, and it's unfortunate that I don't see a lot of people here. So I'm kind of going a little bit off base, but I'm going to continue on. I inherited 5 acres of property from my deceased parents. My mother died approximately 10 years ago. It is not my primary residence. I actually live in Northern Virginia, in the Woodbridge area. I have a 2015 motorhome that I keep down here every now and then with an estimated street value of $408,000. It's a big one. There's also another one just down the road. His is plugged in as well. I have over 60,000 miles on my motorhome, and that's because I travel quite a bit, coast to coast, up and down. Once you're in a government agency, you never really leave it. I visit this area approximately 2 to 4 nights a month, sometimes even more to visit my children. That's one of my daughters right here, but also to maintain the property that was left to me and my siblings by my mother and my father. I also have a daughter who's a police officer, or was a police officer in Newport News. Unfortunately, she was shot. She's disabled, but she believes strongly in serving this country. I come down here and help her with her children as well and maintain her house. The motorhome is 100% self-contained. I don't need electric, water, sewage, nothing. I also have a portable dump tank that we use at campsites if I need to travel a couple hundred feet or whatever to dump the waste in there. I also have a front-end loader on the property, so if it's too heavy, I can just use my front-end loader. Sometimes I actually take the motor home, like I said, and I drive over to Newport News Park and I dump my tanks, which hold 100 gallons of waste. It's a big one. Earlier, for the past 2 or 3 months, there was an anonymous complaint that I was dumping waste on my property, which is unfounded, because it was false. The state came out, did no soil samples whatsoever, and recommended I put down lime because the soil was moist. It was moist because of the air conditioners that were constantly running in the RV, and the bugs kind of like the wetness in there. There was no sewage, so to speak, but I complied with that. The next thing I know, I get a telephone call from the zoning commission telling me I cannot camp there. Again, I'm there to help my children and maintain property that was left. My primary residence is twice as big as the house down here. So to sit here and say that I'm camping when I come down here to visit my children, or I'm here to work, is you just can't put it all under one umbrella. According to the state of Virginia, by definition, camping is 3 or more RVs, tents, or what have you that are set up. I have 1. So according to the state of Virginia, I'm not camping. And what I'm doing there, I'm not even hardly there. I go there to shower, and I go back north like I'm doing this evening. Nonetheless, while I had the motorhome here, every now and then I was using it for Airbnb, helping out other people at a super low rate. Gloucester County didn't have a problem with it. I started this Airbnb in August of 2023.
Sir, you're at almost 5 minutes. You're limited to 3. Could you sum up, please?
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
I've been paying taxes to Gloucester since 2023. It's been benefiting local companies, the laundromat, the restaurants, and what have you. When I went and looked at Gloucester's finances, I just saw that you budgeted $78 million. There was 160. Comes down to, I talked to the health department, there's a homeless problem going on, and people are allowing family members to live in their motorhome. So what I have here is a list of recommendations for us that do Airbnb. I have to shut my site down. I did it today because I promised the zoning office that I would do that. It's lost revenue for Gloucester. I was just doing it to help other people. I don't need the money. Gloucester needs the money. We're running over budget. Everyone's taxes are going to be elevated as a result. We can't make improvements if we don't have the money, bottom line. I'm trying to put money back into the county, a county that I don't even live in anymore. It's your choice on what you want to do. I can afford my property tax. I'm not sure about my neighbors. I do have a list of recommendations. If you allow Airbnb, I will give it to you. If you're interested in it, camping, I've done it all my life. I appreciate your time. Sorry I went over, but it's very important.
Thank you, Mr. Whiting.
Thank you.
Okay, better. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Kathleen Jones. I'm with York District, and I really don't like coming down here to speak, but I have to because I love Gloucester. And I've got to ditto what Diane Jones said and also Mr. Whiting. And if you were, some of these people were at the zoning planning committee hearing, and there was like 200 people or so there, and almost every one of them dittoed what Diane Jones says. People come to Gloucester because of its rural feel and environment, because what it used to be. And that's being changed, and it's being changed rapidly. I've said before in front of you guys that growth is also a cancer. It can be good, but it can be a cancer. Gloucester is losing its environment that attracts people. And everyone I talk to, and I talk to a lot of people, they kind of ditto that. They said, well, I guess I'll be moving on up the county as long as, or, you know, up the road, and you're going to be losing some good citizens. The growth here should be controlled. I would like you guys to deny this zoning ordinance and send it back and actually reduce these 8 units to back to the 6 or the 4. Growth, you know, we want people to come in, we want good people to come in, but we don't want to look like Newport News or even York County. We don't want that kind of growth. We don't want that traffic that it brings and the problems that it brings with it. So I hope you guys will, you know, take a look at that. And I think maybe we need to even go back and change the comprehensive plan, because it sounds like that's not really what your citizens want. And if all the people had shown up from the planning, that had attended the planning committee public hearing, I think you would hear it again. So thanks so much for hearing me.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Diane Jones, I'm in the Ware district. First of all, I would like to thank the gentleman for his service. And nice to know somebody else named Jones agrees with me. We're not related. But anyway, I don't know what to do other than find out when you're up for re-election and find somebody to replace you that likes Gloucester better than you do. Because you apparently don't. You say one thing and then you say, well, we'll table that. And then the next meeting it's untabled and voted for. The UN has a plan for growth, and you are following it. We know you're following it because we know what the plan says. You build little communities, little areas, and then you make them isolatable. So when the government decides you can't travel, you can't move, and we're going to find out who you are and what you're doing, you will not be able to get out of your driveway or down the street. I live on a half-acre restriction property. I have a garage, and that's more than enough extra building on my property. I can't even imagine 8 houses on my property. I mean, it's ridiculous. What if they all had dogs that love to bark all night? What if they all decided they were going to let a bunch of illegal people move in that enjoyed stealing from their neighbors. What are you gonna do about that? I mean, you guys are nuts. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it. I think you need to stop, think of what you're doing, because we're really gonna work at getting you out of office, because we're tired of it.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Lawrence Cohen, York District. Good evening, members of the board and citizens and taxpayers of the county. I'm here this evening to comment on two sections of the zoning update dealing with rural countryside district and rural conservation district, neither of which was mentioned by Ms. Rizzo in her slideshow. Both contain a new sentence bolded in the original proposal that is a conflict of interest for this county and provides an unfair advantage to developers of high-density subdivisions within those two districts. I want to read this new sentence to you to keep in mind as I proceed. Quote, cluster development is encouraged to better achieve these goals, meaning Gloucester County is encouraging a particular form of usage. This new sentence seems to foretell the demise of both districts. Prior wording in the intent paragraph of rural countryside advertises, among others, the intent to conserve farm and forest land and to encourage agricultural activities. The intent section for rural conservation states it is to protect the natural resources of the Bayside area, to preserve prime agricultural soils, and similar other protections. Allowing high-density housing in these districts is an inherent and irreconcilable conflict with the long-standing objectives. The dictionary defines intent as, quote, a determination to perform a particular act or to act in a particular manner for a specific reason, an aim or a design, a resolution to use a certain means to reach an end. The new sentence is a Trojan horse to permit the county to open up to developers high-density housing in these districts. If this board does not delete the new sentence, the baggage of increased schools, increased police, increased emergency resources, and a myriad of additional tax increases to satiate the desires of a clear minority of this county to increase the population, regardless of impact, will fall on the Board of Supervisors. Proponents of this new sentence will tell you, we will get more taxes. Malarkey. The tax increases will never exceed the debt. In addition, the place you came to for the land of the life worth living will disappear. You will be next in Newport News, the next Newport News. Is that what you came here for? The new sentence in both sections regarding high-density housing is an open invitation for developers to invade, knowing that our county will view their projects more favorably than competitors if they use high-density housing to achieve their ends. Do you really believe developers who are seeking to use minimal intrusion, such as single-family housing and acreage minimums, will compete for this acreage with the public threat of favoritism from the county? Members of the board, please delete this sentence from the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Raymond Suttle. I'm an attorney with Kaufman & Knowles, and I represent York River Crossing Associates. They are the owners of the changed to B2, the village district. Besides that piece of property, the adjoining piece of property is York River Crossing Shopping Center, which you're familiar with, which is Zone B1. In a perfect world, we would, and at the end of the day, we would like to see it all combined. The owner sees, unlike several years ago when there was a proposal to make it RMX and some residential, that is not now in the cards at all. No portion of the property would be residential from an economic standpoint. It just doesn't make sense. So what we would like to see is it consistent with the shopping center. One, you say, well, what's the difference between the two, between the B1 and B2? Specifically, the one that really shows up is the restaurant with drive-through, which is allowed in B1 but not in B2. And at that corridor, that's really the one that we think could affect the future development of the property. So in a perfect world, we would like to see it go to B1. But we also understand that staff, the citizens, the planning commission have spent a lot of time on this process, and through some technical issues with the advertising, it's my understanding you really couldn't change that. So we're not going to object to the proposal as it's presented, but we hope to work out a solution, after the fact, so to speak. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Leah Whiting. I am a Gloucester resident. I've been living here my whole entire life. Like that, I'm very proud of what he's doing for our family. I truly believe what he's doing is going to be a huge positive impact in Gloucester. And I'm saying this because based off the experience of watching him doing what he's doing and also him teaching me business and family balance is very important. Because who's going to pay for the electric bill? Who's going to pay for, making sure my cousin has food to eat, kind of thing. And also the biggest part that I love about it is showing people about Gloucester and showing them like, hey, try out this local business, Hannah Sushi. Like, this is the place to eat when you want to eat some really good hibachi food. Or, hey, try out this White Rock. They have really good seafood. So I believe we're helping local businesses while also focusing on family, and cost of everything has gone up. So I believe that's very important. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Whiting.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jake Baranski from the Abingdon district. I want to talk about two different portions of this zoning that Ms. Carroll had brought up tonight. So I understand that these apartments, they were originally 12 unit. They were proposed for 12 units right here. I know some of them were special of 16 units. I know it's been reduced down to 8 units right here. But all these multi-houses, multi-family houses right here, how is this going to help the struggling school system that we have? We already have a overrun school system right here. We have roads that are being neglected. I drove down the end of Arc Road just today, and you can't get down the end of Arc Road in my truck just because the trees that are overgrown on the state maintenance side. Now, I understand that's a VDOT issue, but it seems like we're spending time and resources on bringing more people here compared to trying to work on what we actually have. Why is it that a developer can propose putting as many units on an acre that they can, but a local resident be a healthy growth, because cancer is a growth too. One thing I did like about Ms. Carroll's presentation right here is just to be the ease of the map using right there. I do encourage and appreciate how it's broken down compared to the existing map that we do have on there. If you go on the current website, you try to find out, how things are zoned, and it's just a big white map. So it's kind of a little bit confusing. You have to call the zoning office and stuff like that. So I do appreciate just the time that it is for improving the website for the usage of it for the citizens of Gloucester. With all these multifamily houses right here, it's going to end up, we're slowly turning into Grafton and Newport News right here. I don't know if y'all have been paying attention to much of the news out of Colorado and Chicago recently, but it seems like a lot of multi-family homes and apartments and stuff like that seem to have lost their authority by their actual owners right there. They're being overrun by illegals. I'm not saying that this is going to happen here, but all it is starting to drive that wedge, get a little further and a little further, and it creates more opportunities for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bransky. Would anyone else like to come up and speak? Ms. Cronin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First from Dr. Adrian Ryder Cook-Joseph from the York District. Dear members of the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors, I'm writing on behalf of the Main Street Preservation Trust to express our strong support for the proposed changes to the B2 Village Mixed Use District, which would allow multifamily residential units by right at a density of 8 units per acre. The growing demand for housing across the United States has highlighted the need for strategic urban planning that incorporates residential development into central locations. Downtowns and neighborhood commercial districts, such as our Main Street, are ideal areas to accommodate this need. Change and growth are inevitable, and it is crucial that we encourage regulation for the change that we desire versus the change that we don't want. The proposed B2 regulations reflect a proactive approach to shaping our community's future, ensuring that growth benefits both residents and small businesses. Integrating multifamily residential units into the village areas will have numerous benefits for our community. Economic support for local businesses. The additional residents living on Main Street will directly support our local small businesses. These residents will shop locally, effectively sustaining and boosting the economic vitality of the businesses occupying the ground floor spaces. Enhanced community safety. More residents in the heart of the community naturally increase the presence of people on Main Street, contributing to greater community safety. This increased foot traffic can deter crime and create a more secure environment for all. Reduced reliance on automobiles. By providing housing within the hub of the community, residents can fulfill their daily needs with minimal reliance on personal automobiles. This reduction in car usage not only alleviates traffic congestion, but also promotes environmental sustainability through decreased emissions. Furthermore, the increased pedestrian and bicycle traffic will enliven the streetscape, fostering a vibrant community atmosphere. Diverse housing options. Encouraging a variety of housing forms within the Main Street District offers more options to residents. Whether individuals prefer to live above, below, or next to a store or cafe, or desire an outdoor garden or yard, these housing choices accommodate diverse lifestyles and preferences, fostering a more inclusive community. Main Street districts are the heart of their communities, lined with small, independent businesses that serve as hubs of activity. By thoughtfully guiding residential development in these areas, we can create more dynamic and thriving neighborhoods. We believe that the proposed changes to the B2 Village Mixed Use District will not only address the pressing housing needs of our community, but also enhance the economic, social, and environmental fabric of Gloucester. We urge the Board of Supervisors to approve these changes and support the continued growth and vitality of our Main Street. Thank you for considering our perspective. We look forward to collaborating with you to ensure the successful implementation of these important changes. From Ashley West from the York District, I am writing on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Gloucester Community Loan Fund to express our support for the proposed zoning ordinance update related to Village Mixed-Use B2 regulations. As an organization dedicated to fostering the viability and sustainability of businesses in the Gloucester Main Street and Gloucester Courthouse areas, We believe that this update is a critical step towards a prosperous future for our community. The Gloucester Community Loan Fund provides financial assistance to small businesses, helping them to grow and thrive in our local economy. Our support is crucial for maintaining a vibrant business environment that serves the needs of both residents and visitors. The proposed B2 regulations align with our mission by promoting a mixed-use development model that encourages economic growth and community cohesion. Growth is an inevitable aspect of any thriving community, and it is essential that we proactively shape this growth through thoughtful regulation. The proposed changes to the B2 regulations will provide a framework that accommodates the evolving needs of our community while preserving the unique character of Gloucester. By fostering a balanced mix of residential and commercial spaces, these regulations will enhance the quality of life for residents and create a supportive environment for small businesses. The connection between residential areas and local businesses is particularly significant in the Gloucester Main Street district. Residents who live on Main Street directly support our small businesses, creating a symbiotic relationship that benefits the entire community. By encouraging mixed-use development, the updated B2 regulations will strengthen this relationship, ensuring that both residents and businesses continue to thrive. In conclusion, the Gloucester Community Loan Fund firmly believes that the proposed zoning ordinance update for the Village Mixed-Use District, B2, is a positive and necessary step forward. We urge the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors to adopt these regulations, which will support sustainable growth, enhance our community's character, and provide a robust foundation for the future success of Gloucester. Thank you for considering our perspective. We look forward to the positive impact this update will have on our community. Last comment is from Samantha Smith in the Ware District. On behalf of the Gloucester Main Street Association, I'm writing to express our strong support for the proposed changes to the B2 Village Mixed Use District. These changes, which will allow multifamily residential units by right at a density of 8 units per acre, are essential for the continued growth and vitality of our community. The Gloucester Main Street Association is a group of dedicated business owners, residents, commercial and residential property owners, and other individuals who have joined together to form a nonprofit organization. Our goal is to promote historic Gloucester Main Street, plan and implement events, and attract additional businesses and residents. We are committed to making Gloucester Main Street beautiful, interesting, and a great place to visit, live, invest, and work. There is an increasing demand and limited supply of housing in communities across the United States. Downtowns and neighborhood commercial districts, such as our Main Street, present an ideal central location for new housing development. Integrating multifamily residential units into the village areas will have numerous benefits for our community. For local business support, the additional residents living on Main Street will directly support our local small businesses. These residents will shop locally, effectively sustaining and boosting the economic vitality of the businesses occupying the ground floor spaces. Increased walkability. By providing housing within the hub of the community, residents can fulfill their daily needs with minimal reliance on personal automobiles. This reduction in car usage not only alleviates traffic congestion, but also promotes environmental sustainability through decreased emissions. Furthermore, the increased pedestrian and bicycle traffic will enliven the streetscape, fostering a vibrant community atmosphere. Diverse housing options, encouraging a variety of housing forms within the Main Street District, offers more options to residents. Whether individuals prefer to live above, below, or next to a store or cafe, or desire an outdoor garden or yard, these housing choices accommodate diverse lifestyles and preferences, fostering a more inclusive community. Enhanced community safety. More residents in the heart of the community naturally increase the presence of people on Main Street, contributing to greater community safety. Main Street districts represent the heart of their communities, hosting small independent businesses that act as vibrant hubs of activity. By thoughtfully guiding residential development in these areas, we can foster more dynamic and thriving neighborhoods, enhancing the vitality of our community. The proposed changes to the B2 Village Mixed Use District will not only address the pressing housing needs of our community, but also enrich the economic, social, and environmental fabric of Gloucester. We encourage the Board of Supervisors to approve these changes, supporting the continued growth and vitality of our Main Street. Thank you for your consideration and continued support. Those are all the comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Cronin. That's twice tonight you've interrupted in the middle of the meeting. Can you stop, please, Ms. Jones? Well, we can ask you to leave. We're respectful when you're speaking. Be respectful to others. Would anyone else like to come up and speak during the citizen comment period? All right, let's close the public hearing portion. Any questions for the staff or anyone? Mr. Bazzani.
So I'd just like to, thank you. just like to comment on one of the constituents that came up. I sent an email out to each of you gentlemen looking at 5-20.1 and 5-20.2. And when you read the language, when you read the language for zoning districts RC1, it says the country district is an agricultural district. The intent is to conserve farm and forest land and to encourage agricultural activities, thereby helping to ensure that the commercial agricultural will continue long term. But then on the other side of that, we encourage cluster development. And that's for 20.1. 20.2 says the same thing. Basically, we're looking for conservation and we want to preserve these conservation areas, but we want to encourage more cluster development. I'm not so certain that we really want that just yet in Gloucester County. And looking at this more and looking at it and thinking about it more and more, we should probably remove any encouraging language to allow developers to put cluster developments in the rural areas of Gloucester County. Because I remember in the last meeting we had, a lot of people were here and they wanted to maintain the rural character of this county. I do too. And I also want to bolster business development along 17. But if we allow cluster developments to occur on the rural areas of Gloucester County, it's going to create issues that we all know. I'm not going to get into them. We all know what those might do. So my point is, we should probably have the Planning Commission reconsider this language and perhaps consider deleting that language so that when you're talking about RC1, it is RC1 and we're not trying to encourage development back there. So 5-20.1, 5-20.2, we should probably reconsider eliminating that last sentence because it's kind of a conundrum, right? We want conservation, we want to preserve the rural character, but then all of a sudden, hey, we want cluster development back there. That's not what Gloucester County is all about. So I would strongly encourage, gentlemen, that we reconsider and rethink this and remove that last sentence. It seems like I tried to go back and look at the original version. I couldn't find this one sentence, but if it was there, I might have missed it. So I would suggest, gentlemen, that we need to reconsider the addition of that one sentence because people don't, we are not growing as fast as most other localities are. The Coleman Bridge is keeping a lot of people from moving into the county. We've only grown by about 3,500 people over the last 20 years. Not that many people. We're not the go-to place to go. We're becoming, as I said time and time again, we're becoming more and more of a retirement community. And so as more and more people decide they want to come here to Gloucester County to retire and do their business along 17, that's not going to increase school burdens. That's not going to increase the need for public safety and fire and rescue. But if we are going to maintain a rural feel to this county, we should try to eliminate any kind of cluster development because if one pops up, there's another one. If you recall 3 years ago, we stopped a lot of Texas companies from attacking this county by putting commercial solar farms in. And if you go up 14 and look at the ugly solar farm that's up 14 and the one they're developing right behind Coates and Clark, whatever that name that facility is called. Those are ugliest things in the world. So we've done the right thing. We've limited to the upper parts of the county to less than 1 or 2%. Let's do the same thing here. Let's limit what kind of growth is established in the rural areas of our county and still try to bolster Route 17 as a commerce center. It's not going to hurt traffic to encourage more and more businesses to come here. So please, let's reconsider this. I would suggest we send it back to the Planning Commission for consideration to remove those two sentences and those two sections of the ordinance.
Dr. Orth.
Do we need to send that back to the Planning Commission, or can we just strike it tonight? I mean, I concur with your comments, Mr. Bazzani, and again, thinking back to the committees that we had regarding solar development, we took into consideration the rural character and wanted to keep solar farms to certain portions of the county in a certain percentage. But just out of curiosity, how did that phrase come into be? And was that just something that because we know that there's pressure that we thought this might be better, or can you maybe enlighten us as that one sentence?
Yes, so the idea of cluster development in the RC1, RC2, the minimum lot size would be 1 acre. it's been in our ordinance since 1998. It's never been used because in our agricultural districts, we don't allow major subdivisions. So you can only get 3 lots out of any development other than a family transfer. If you recall at our last joint meeting, there was a lot of discussion about this because staff actually had proposed taking it out of RC1 and RC2 because we don't allow major subdivisions. But the Planning Commission is considering redoing the subdivision ordinance, and several commissioners wanted to keep it in because the idea of a cluster development is actually preservation of ag and open space. When you cluster, you leave open space, and so the overall density is not different than a by right development. So on a regular by right development, you have a 5-acre parcel. On a cluster development, you have a 1-acre parcel, and then the rest would be open space, or an orchard, or a farm. So the Planning Commission, actually at the joint meeting, you all agreed to keep it in. So we can remove it. Right now, you can't do a major subdivision in RC1 and RC2, so the maximum number of lots you can get is 3 lots. If you clustered it, you'd get, those lots could be 1 acre, and the rest would be open space to be used. It's called a preservation parcel, and that preservation parcel has certain things that it can be used for, like agriculture, orchards, open space, campgrounds even. So that's the idea of a cluster development. We do not allow cluster in single family, so the only districts that allow cluster are suburban countryside, which is our 2-acre minimum lot size. And an example of that is Patriots Walk. Literally, that's our only cluster development we have in the county. One of the reasons for that is it's based on the net acreage, so you have to take out wetlands and a lot of other things. So often, a cluster development doesn't give you the density, increased density, because you take out wetlands and other things that you don't have to take out in a by right development.
But if we remove the sentence, does it make any difference to how we approach the zoning? I mean, if we didn't have it.
If you want to remove that sentence about encouraging it, there was actually at our last planning commission a lot of discussion about the word encouraging.
Yeah.
So certainly if you want to remove that sentence.
I don't know how the rest of the board, but it seems like eliminating it would not have any major impact on the way we're approaching zoning.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Putting the word encourage is what sparked the interest, but no, I'd agree with moving forward with removing the lines from page 39 and 44.
Any more questions? Dr. Orth?
As a comment to the gentleman, Mr. Whiting, and again, thank you for your service, and those are some good times having been on the board. I mean, not the rescue squad. So he raised some interesting points. I don't know if the issues that he has are configured in the way we do our Airbnb and stuff like that. With that, the questions that he had, because it's obviously an individual, and we tried to encourage. And one thing we do, the board, as far as I know, we've tried very hard in the years that we've had the zoning to understand the needs of the people. As Ms. Rizzio said, this has been going on for 5 years. I've been on the board for 13, and during that time, we had all those we had our joint meetings with the Planning Commission, and I can tell you this, that the Planning Commission and the board, in many ways, disagreed with things that the Planning Commission wanted, and so we went back and forth, and so the consequence of this new revised zoning is the result of a lot of intense word-by-word discussion on a lot of the elements that we thought were appropriate to make it easier for people to read the zoning. And again, the board is very concerned about growth. As a matter of fact, Ms. Steele has brought up issues about the open areas of the county. How do we keep them open? And we certainly want to keep the county rural. It was interesting. I had my grandson on Friday, and I said, let's just, he's from York County. He said, let's go to the upper end of the county. Oh, sorry. You told me to speak into, anyway.
Lean forward.
Oh, I can't, my back. But I took him up 198, and we went from 198 all the way to Harcum, all the way through. And that, I think, if you haven't, it's a beautiful part of the county. It is absolutely beautiful, and I am hoping it will stay the same. And of course, we did restrict the solar farm stuff to, less than, a percentage. But you know, there are some incredibly beautiful parts of this county when you get off Sept, and he was impressed. You know, it took him all the way down through Harcum, down to Deep Point where I fish, and then all the way across back to 17. That's a large area of the county that is absolutely beautiful. And, you know, I think we all want to keep it that way. You know, that is something that we strive for, and we will do our very best to make sure that it stays that way.
Did you have something, Mr. Whiting, you said you wanted to hand out to us? You don't have one printout?
Why don't you give it to?
I can get the printout from you if you want me to.
Mr. Whiting, if you would give it to Ms. Cronin.
She can get it to us.
Yeah, yeah. How that will impact our decision regarding the current zoning is something that we'd have to look into. But we certainly understand, and you know, when citizens come to us with legitimate concerns, we listen really much to what they have to say, because in many cases, the citizens that do come have very important things that are important to them and do impact other people in the community. Well, we do have a program called Guest, which helps the homeless during the winter times. It's run by a variety of churches that provide, you know, a place for them for, you know, get out of the web. And there's a permanent building now off 17 that is for them, you know, if they need certain, you know, situations. So, you know, again, there are people that are watching. There is this program called Guest, run by the churches and other groups. And it's done, you know, primarily during the winter months when people need a place to stay. So, you know, we do have a concern about the homeless problem, and it's, you know, it is true, it's there.
Mr. Gibson.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I just wanted to thank Mr. Rizzio, Ms. Ducey-Ortiz, and the Planning Commission for all of their hard work over the past 5 years to get us to this point. That is a lot of work, a lot of meetings, a lot of town halls, and so we certainly appreciate all of your hard work. Thank you, Dr. Orth, for your kind comments about the Harcum and Petsworth area that I represent. It is a beautiful area, and I certainly agree with the comments of my fellow board members that we need to preserve the rural character of our county. That's why people move here. That's why they love Gloucester County. And that's why so many people are moving here, is because they love the small town feel, the history of our area, the beauty of our area. And so we need to take a very, very careful look at how we manage development and growth. We do not want to grow at such a rapid pace that we are outgrowing our ability to support our citizens. We don't have the infrastructure to do that. We don't have the roads, we don't have the schools, we don't have the fire and rescue to support rapid growth. So we as a board, in my opinion, need to be very, very careful about how growth is managed in our county. And so I share the concerns of many of the citizens who've spoken tonight, as well as my fellow board members. And I certainly don't have any objection to striking the language encouraging this additional development. I think that's a reasonable recommendation, and so I support this effort, and thank you again for all the hard work that went into this.
Mr. Chriscoe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking back to, I don't know what page it is, I think it was 23 and 24 of Ms. Rizzio's slide projections, and having attended the public hearing for the Planning Commission where they dropped the dwelling units per acre from 12 to 8, listening to those comments and I think how we're going to be handling the comprehensive plan going forward, potentially if these same people decide to show up for that as they did for the public hearing that they were given notice of, I do have some concerns with continuing at 8 dwelling units per acre in these districts at this time, based on the comments of how the folks are wanting to see growth in this community and going forward. I don't have a resolution to that suggestion at the moment, but sitting here and listening to the comments again tonight and remembering back to the comments from that public hearing, are we sure we're doing the right thing with the 8 dwelling units per acre in that district?
What do you think it should be? What would you recommend? 6?
I mean, just looking at the info that was given, I would probably lean more towards a 6 dwelling unit per acre because it's just slightly more appealing than as we get to those 8 and 12s. But, you know, there's going to be other opportunities where if there was an 8 dwelling unit per acre, it would be as aesthetically pleasing. But people are really concerned about the growth in this county. Mr. Gibson just mentioned, you know, what is our capacities to mitigate these things, and it's just something that thinking from that meeting and, you know, seeing the change brought forth by the Planning Commission, well, I think it's the right direction. Is it the final answer? I'm not sure. I'm sort of just throwing that out there for us to maybe discuss a little bit further.
Comus Crossing 6, right? Or 4?
6.
What was 6? Okay. What's Fiddler's Green? The one that up here by Belroy.
They're both about 6. They were zoned under MF1, which allows up to 8. And in talking with the developer, just, you know, trying to get the open space and, you know, all the other requirements, 6 is about what he could get out of it. If you want to go higher, then you tend to go up.
And this, what's we're talking about, or what's proposed, just coming from the Planning Commission, is this is just for B2.
Correct.
So for the rest of it, this is just B2 at 8?
Correct. B2 currently doesn't allow multifamily. It allows you to do accessory dwelling to a commercial dwelling, so 1 or 2 apartments above, you know, a commercial on Main Street. And so this would allow you to do either residential or commercial or mixed use. And again, as Mr. Rizio mentioned, on Main Street, it is required to have a certain percentage of commercial on the ground floor on Main Street in the village area. So, you know, Carol had that slide that showed that if it all got developed, there would be, what, 400 new units if every vacant B2 property got developed as 8 units per acre.
So, Mr. Chair, should we go ahead and go forward deleting the sentences in the 2 paragraphs that we talked about this evening and have them revise it? Does that take out the sentence, the phrase, the clustering?
Cluster development.
Yeah, the clustering.
But they were both cluster
Both
development.
paragraphs, yeah. Yep. So, does that require, Mr. Chair, that's up to you. How
No,
you wanna handle
that can be changed. Is there any more discussion about anything? Okay, well, we have 2, we got a pink piece of paper and can't find it. We've got 2 ordinances. The first ordinance is the one on page 61 that removes fees from the appendix.
I'm sorry. Can I interrupt you?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to, so the other proposal, which didn't get a lot of discussion, is our MF1 that currently allows up to 8 dwelling units by right, with 12 if you do a CUP. So being you're removing the 12 and the 8 from B2, you might want to consider our multifamily district. Currently, for years, it's been up to 8 dwelling units per acre. The proposal was go up to 12 with a CUP. All our multifamily is currently built as apartments. It was when the zoning came in, if it was an apartment, they zoned it multifamily.
But that wasn't, is anyone proposing that we change that out of B2?
Nobody's asked a question. Am I confusing things?
Yes.
And if, okay, Mr. Chair, that does require a CUP, so it would be coming back
Yes.
to
It
you
would be
anyway,
coming to you.
so I don't.
Okay.
And for clarification, I think Carol thought you were taking the 8 definitely out. There
No.
was not a consensus on that, right? Okay.
No, right now, all we're looking at doing is moving the sentences about cluster development out of RC1 and RC2. Now can I go on, Ms. Rizzio? There's 2 ordinances. The first one on page 61 is to remove the fees from the zoning document. And we'll put it in separate.
I'll make the motion to approve the ordinance on page 61, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Steele, will you poll the board?
Dr. Orth?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Hutson?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe? Yes. Mr. Bazzani? Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chriscoe?
I want to ask planning staff one quick question. There's no multifamily that currently exists. They would have to come in for a rezoning for that. That is correct, correct? Okay. And then we could decide on the density at that point in time. Okay. But the comments from the last planning commission public hearing, I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to do something here and come 6 months, have egg on our face, so.
No. Okay. The second ordinance is the one on page 63. I've handed up, Mr. Wilmot.
Yes. If the board is of a mind to approve the ordinance as written, the zoning ordinance as written, with the modification of the removal of the portion of the sentence concerning cluster developments and the entire sentence of cluster developments from sections 5-20.1 and 5-20.21 respectively, then I have drafted a motion which would accomplish that objective, if you'd like to hear it.
Does that include what I passed out
It
that you
does.
handed me? Okay. Yes, I would like to hear it.
One or more of you could say this if you'd like.
We don't have a copy of it.
No, you don't. You have everything except what you changed. So I could not prognosticate what you might be of a mind to change. So now that I know what you want to change, this is what you've done. I move to approve the zoning ordinance appearing beginning on page 63 of the agenda packet, comma, as revised to remove the verbiage in the last sentence of section 5-20.2, parens 1, following the word, quote, permitted, end quote, comma, and to remove the last sentence of section 5-20.1, parens 1, comma, to amend and reenact appendix B dash zoning of the Gloucester County Code and to adopt an official zoning map depicting the current zoning districts in the county, comma, with the exception of one parcel of land, comma, 10.65 plus or minus acres in total, comma, located in the Gloucester Point Magisterial District, comma, and currently zoned RMX, comma, residential mixed use, comma, that will be changed to B2, comma, village mixed use, since the RMX district is not included in the amended ordinance, period. I further move that the county sponsor a rezoning application for the subject property parens, tax map number 51-78, comma, RPC number 40099, end parenthetical, from B-2 zoning district to B-1 zoning district, period.
Mr. Bazzani.
I do have a question. In the language in 520.1, it says, in the penultimate sentence, it says, while allowing low-density residential development. Do we want low-density residential development in RC1?
Well, the ordinance itself allows that. So you'd have, this intent, as you alluded to, and you were correct, Mr. Bazzani and Mr. Chriscoe, the intent part is mostly fluff. It really isn't enforceable. It's the meat of it that counts. And so the meat of it allows low density. So I don't think that penultimate sentence in 520.1, parents 1, means a whole lot.
What does while allowing low-density residential development mean?
Well, what it means is that district allows low-density residential development.
So is low-density a cluster development?
It may not.
Okay.
But
So-
if you wanted to prohibit cluster development, you would put that in the meat of the ordinance, not in the intent of the ordinance. But all I heard so far tonight is the objections to those two portions in the intent. So if you want to change it, we can do that. But if there are more changes, I can only butcher this so much. We'd have to come back and probably do it next meeting. But it's whatever y'all want.
Where's the word intent here?
Right here, intent?
The intent, okay, the first sentence, okay, first word. The intent. But so the intent is, wow, reading King's English here, the intent then would be to allow low-density residential development.
Yes, sir, that's one of the intents.
Which could be a cluster development, without the sentence being, I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Chriscoe.
It could be.
So how do we clear it so that it's abundantly clear that no cluster development or any kind of residential development will be?
But Mr. Bazzani, I think you,
am I confusing things here?
I think you're confusing things because a cluster development is making it 1 acre, so the houses are closer together, but you're going to have open space in the development. It's just making the houses closer. You're not adding more houses, you're just putting them closer, so in the event that you could have orchards or green or whatever you wanted there, it would make it, it would keep more open space.
So if we remove the cluster development sentence, then, I mean, this would allow a person who owns property in the rural countryside or to maybe build a house for their kids or for himself or herself.
Yes, sir.
Area.
The section allows.
Not a cluster development, though.
No, well, 5-20.1, one of the sections to which we're referring, allows as a permitted use under residential, dwelling, accessory, dwelling, single family, these are by right, cluster.
Okay.
So by right, dwelling, single family detached, comma, cluster is listed as a permitted use, as is dwelling, single family detached, conventional. So they're all listed as permitted by right uses. So removing the encouraging part from the intent paragraph doesn't do a whole lot, but that's what y'all want to do.
You know, someone could argue that, you know, if you leave the cluster development sentence in there, some developer can say, well, the intent is to allow me to put a cluster development in this RC1 district.
Mr.
Unless we
Chair.
make it abundantly clear that you can't do this and you can't develop a lot of homes on a lot of properties, then say so. Say what we want to do.
You would have to remove from the residential, on page 42, those are the permitted residential uses in what?
Ms. Ducey Ortiz.
So the cluster option, as Mr. Hutson mentioned, it's a 1 acre minimum lot size, and there's a section of requirements for it. It's been in the ordinance again since 1998 when they adopted it, and the idea actually was it was prepared to preserve farmland, and so to allow developers to develop on smaller lots versus a minimum lot size of 5 acres, but to have the rest preserved. So the idea was to help people preserve land. As I mentioned, though, they also then did the subdivision ordinance, which doesn't allow major subdivisions, so you're stuck to 3 lots. The Planning Commission is considering allowing more lots in that zoning district, so if they do, that would impact the cluster development. You might be allowed to put 5 lots. So, so that's why the Planning Commission at the last joint meeting asked to keep it in. But it still is in there.
Ms. Steele.
I think just a clarification, Mr. Bazzani, that as Ms. Ducey Ortiz says, it's only 3 lots at this time. And if the group goes forward, which would come back to the board, if the Planning Commission goes forward looking at the subdivision change if that changes, then you would have an opportunity to again modify. Forestry fragmentation has been a real concern by the forestry department, that they have advocated of when we go into rural areas and we build, you take the ability to have a track of forestry and to have a better producing situation. So again, this was done for preservation of rural communities. But we're only talking a maximum of 3 at this point, so.
I understand, but on page 42, the word cluster is mentioned in RC1.
So a cluster
let's take it
would
out of
mean
both sections to
3
make it clear.
houses could be built close together,
Take out
not
cluster.
30 houses.
But the word cluster is still in there. The word cluster is in this table
So
on page 42.
as long as, whatever the
Take
board
it
would
out.
like, but the maximum would be 3 houses built close together so that you would have more open space around for farming,
But
for
this-
other
but
things.
this-
The example is if we only allow 3 right now, and they're each 5 acres, so it's 15 acres. So by a cluster, we take that 15 acres, we make 3 1-acre lots, and all the rest has to still be in some type of agriculture. So that we're really not increasing the number of homes, and right now we're limited to 3. So the 15 acres can only have 3 1-acre lots, and the rest is open land for.
Well, then as you explained it just now, cluster just confuses everything.
Yes. Now,
So
they
take
talk
it
about
out.
coming back later and maybe making it something more than 3 homes, and y'all will have a chance at that time to decide if you want to do it. But for right now, the cluster in that part of the ordinance is just for 3, up to 3 lots, and that's it.
If we want to maintain the rural character of Gloucester County, let's take out the word cluster, both in the sentence and in the table on page 42. That way it's abundantly clear, there aren't any clustering going on back there.
Well, Mr. Bazzani, I think where you said that if you wanted to build a house for your 2 kids,
One house.
let's say you wanted to build 2 houses, you had 15 acres, and you wanted to build a house for your 2 kids. Right now, there would have to be each on a 5-acre parcel. Whereas if they were clustered, you could have the 3 of them on 1-acre parcels near one another, and the rest of the 15 acres could be open. That's why it's called clustered, and that's why the Planning Commission wanted to keep it like it was.
So,
that you've got the
for
3
family purposes, yeah, I agree with you.
But
for
but they're-
developer purposes, he can go out and try to cluster up a bunch of acres of land if he wanted to. Take 1 acre here, 1 acre there, 1 acre there, and put a bunch of houses in there, right? Clustered homes. It doesn't have to be, Chris, it doesn't have to be family members.
You're only having 1 house on the acre.
You just, by definition, you said three houses in an acre by
No, I
clustering.
said 3 houses on 3 different acres. Right now, you would have to have 15 acres to have 3 houses and put them each on 1-acre lots side by side. That would be a cluster. If you don't have cluster in here as it's written, you would have to have a 5-acre parcel with 1 house, a 5-acre parcel with 1 house, and a 5-acre parcel with 1 house.
Well, then that maintains the rural character of.
That's why.
Trying to achieve here,
That's
right?
why the Planning Commission, even in our joint meeting, that's why they wanted the cluster. They preferred the cluster. That's where that was coming from. And it was probably one of them that is the most against any growth in the county was the one that suggested it.
I still stand by removing the word cluster from both the table and the sentence in both of the paragraphs.
Pretty sure we did that. That's what they decided.
Mr. Chriscoe.
Is it possible to get Ms. Rizzio to explain a little clearer her email she sent to us today? Because I'd like to know, currently, it would take a 15-acre lot. What's the minimum lot size that you could put a cluster development on currently, or with the update?
I guess 10 acres? So in our ag districts, to build a house, you need 5-acre lot. So if you wanted to cluster, you would need at least 10 acres, and you would take 2 of those 10 acres and put a house on each, and 8 acres would be open space. If they couldn't cluster, you would have 5 acres, 5 acres. So it's not increasing density, it's just the location of the houses are able to cluster together so you preserve more open space.
Listening to what the citizens have said, both in the last meeting we had and this meeting, it appears that they don't want this type of confined clustered development on 1 acre of property. 3 consecutive acres of property and the rest being agricultural. So if we take out the word cluster, both in these two paragraphs and in this table, it won't leave any developer a chance and open to say, well, you know, it says cluster. Your ordinance is not clear as to which way it can go. So to avoid that, I mean, I made a fortune, suing the government for $250 million on the word will. So words are important.
I agree, words are important. None of the public that contacted us called us about this topic, so I'm not sure. We didn't have an opportunity to explain exactly what a cluster was and what it meant, so I can't speak to. The intent of it is, as what was said, to preserve agriculture, open space, not to allow more development. That being said, clustering does save costs on roads and infrastructure because you're not running utility lines and roads to all the houses that are out on 5 acres each.
But that would be borne by the developer who puts those houses
Correct.
back there, not the
So that's what I'm
taxpayer.
saying, it does.
Ms. Steele?
I think I just need to say it one more time, and then it's whatever the majority of you all think. But I don't believe the word cluster was understood well, and I think that if you have heard people speaking against it, I think that most people would feel that there's not a developer who's going to come rushing to Gloucester County to build 3 homes on 15 acres. There are going to be people here locally, there may be some, but it's not apartments, it's not 12 on an acre. These ordinances are done for preservation. And just like Carol said, if you're going to build 2 homes, having them closer together and sharing a road and things like that's going to make it easier for you. And I just think it's a misunderstanding of terms, but if you take that away, then you are removing a preservation type of development, a kind of that does keep areas more rural, more woods, instead of, I mean, some people think they want to move to the country and go to the 5 acres and then realize how big 5 acres is.
But, okay, I'll just do it one more time. But if you have 20 acres out there, and so every other acre, you can put 3 houses on there because it's 20 acres. 20 different owners own those acres, right? And so they can divide and put, homes, 10 homes or whatever they want based on the word cluster.
No, that's not what that says. That's not what would be allowed.
It's not clear to me.
Well, maybe looking at the chart and going through and seeing where, what the requirements, the maximum of homes, I mean, the minimum acre size and the type of,
Well, see,
what can be done in that
you're
area.
doing the example that we're doing right now. You and I are going to be arguing about this. So will developers out there be developing and arguing with you on the same definition of the word cluster. So let's just get rid of the word cluster. That's it. It's over.
Getting rid of the word cluster is taking a form of development away that many people who like rural areas might like. If that's what the board wants to do, that's fine. And I don't want to argue. I just don't want to, I would hate for a decision to be made based on a misunderstanding of what a planning word is.
Dr. Orth?
I'm going to try to think of this as 10 acres of, let's say 15 acres of woods, okay? A treed 15 acres. So if you had an individual that had 15 acres and wanted to have 3 houses on 5 acres, you would be eliminating quite a few trees to make space for the house, the drain field, and everything else. So you're removing more habitat in those 3 5 acres. So the whole idea is you take that 15 acres and you have 3 1 acres that minimizes the loss of your habitat of the other 12 acres. Okay? So if you have, like for each house on a 5 acre, a road, you know, a house, and some people will take down all the trees around the house, some people may not. You know, what I can see now is the purpose of clustering those 3 houses in a smaller area to minimize the impact in that very beautiful rural part of the county.
Mr. Chriscoe.
Yeah, and I spoke to remove where we encouraged this, and I still think we shouldn't encourage any type of specific development. With that said, I think at this time, I'm for just removing that from the lines, leaving it in the chart, and waiting for the Planning Commission to come back and see what they want to say about these other subdivisions in these districts, because at that time, I think we may come back in here and either want to remove cluster completely or leave it, because it may make more sense for us to limit the amount, because according to what I'm reading here, it's 1 acre with a gross density of 1 dwelling unit per 4 acres. So someone with 100 acres, they're going to be capped at what they can do, whereas the Planning Commission may come back and say that 100 acres you can build 5 or 50 homes on, where at this rate it'd be 25. So I'm not for removing cluster from the chart, but I am in favor of removing as an encouragement at this time.
Okay. Mr. Wilmot read.
I'll make the motion to accept the ordinance as identified by Mr. Wilmot's excellent work.
I'll second it.
Okay. Ms. Steele.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Hutson?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe? Yes. Mr. Bazzani? Yes. Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Dr. Orth?
Yes.
Congratulations. You all just got a new zoning ordinance.
All right, let's take a 10-minute break. the meeting. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing to amend the fiscal year 25 budget. Ms. Callaway.
Good evening. So this public hearing is to consider a resolution to amend the fiscal year 2025 budget. Per state code, a public hearing is required anytime additional appropriations exceed 1% of the adopted budget. This evening on your agenda later tonight, we have several appropriations for your consideration, and those appropriations cause us to meet this 1% threshold. The largest of these appropriations include $1.7 million in additional state funding to the schools, $2.38 million in carryover appropriations to continue our automated metering infrastructure project for utilities, $815,000 in pass-through fees to pay for solar inspectors, and that does not include local dollars. Those are just coming through the county. And $401,000 in unspent fiscal year 2024 appropriations for the Building 4 renovation, and then $148,000 in other unspent FY 2024 appropriations for various smaller projects that are continuing into fiscal year 25. And all of those are detailed in your agenda packet on page 120. This public hearing has been advertised properly, and there is a resolution on page 119.
All right, let's open the citizen comment period. The public hearing, if anybody would like to speak on this topic, please come forward and state your name and magisterial district. All right, we'll close the citizens. I've already checked. We'll close the citizen comment period. Any questions for Ms. Callaway?
I'd like to make the motion that we accept the ordinance on page 119.
I second.
The resolution.
Mr. Chair.
Sorry, resolution.
I second that resolution, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Steele?
Mr. Hutson?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Bazzani? Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Dr. Orth? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a request for additional funds for fiscal year 25 appropriations. Ms. Callaway.
Yes, and again, these are simply the appropriations that I just explained that were, we amended the budget for.
Right.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Steele?
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Bazzani? Mr. Nicosia? Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Dr. Orth? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is discussion of consideration for the fiscal year 26 budget meeting calendar. Ms. Steele.
So we've had a couple of different comments that were made, that we made notes about on how to change our budget cycle and the process and to potentially make that bigger, or better, sorry. So definitely not bigger, but better. So in your agenda packet, there are two different draft meeting calendars for your consideration. We're not adopting anything, not asking that of you tonight, but wanted to let you know of two potential choices, and then y'all might merge or however. I think the important things to remember that on both of the different options, there's a delay in the presentation of the operating budget, and there's also a delay in the decision on the tax rate being advertised. And then also, we're avoiding spring break for any meetings. And then finally, the budget adoption has been pushed back to the last week of April. And again, both of these are, both options and all the things that I just mentioned, they were suggested so that you would have more time, that there would be an opportunity for you to hear the school board's budget presentation potentially before the budget tax rate is advertised. So in version A, and you can kind of flip back and forth between the pages and see the differences, but one is that after the joint meeting, you could adopt the tax rates that night. You could hold the town hall to be held following that, and then the public hearings, and again, the work sessions are listed there for you. And there's really several ways that you could change when you would adopt the tax rates. And so version B pushes it back a little bit further. And we have tried to take into consideration when the school board is meeting for their regular nights, and the fact that we share an encoder, so we should not have both boards meeting the same night if you want to be televised. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or would ask that you look over both of the calendars. I mean, if y'all want to discuss it tonight, that's great, but, and that might give us some guidance if you already know which way you're looking, but to kind of check them out and see how they work with your personal calendars and what your preference would be. The capital improvement budget presentation would not change. So that would stay on time, so that would provide about 2 more weeks of time that you would have before the operating budget presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
And you'd just like some feedback by October, before October meeting?
It would be great if we could adopt it that night, and we know, I know Ms. Callaway would like to get out the announcements to the staff of when budgets are due and letting the schools know and that kind of thing. So if there's any major feedback, there could be talking before, but basically adopt it that night.
Any initial thought one way or the other?
My initial thought is, I like version B. But I would like to see, or at least, I like the March the 18th, the joint Board of Supervisors School Board meeting from March with the possible rate decision on the 18th. If that could move to the version 2, I think I'd be real happy with that.
That'll work for me too. I wouldn't have any problem.
Before we make any decision, can you, Ms. Cronin, what are they're gone. Can you get with us on the school board dates for April? Because they're not on the list.
Mr. Chair, because school board normally meets the same week that spring break is, they have not chosen a meeting date. Obviously, it's really early, so their normal meeting would be the second Tuesday of the month. Ms. Day, the clerk of the school board, did speak with the chair and the vice chair of the school board. Their second option, or their initial thought, was to third Tuesday, and I explained that was our regular April meeting, work session meeting. So they're going to go back to the discussion, and so those dates that are proposed on that calendar will shift once the school board, because they need to have priority to pick a date. Outside of our first and third Tuesday, they need to have a priority to pick a date for their April meeting.
So, Mr. Chair, we do know that the 7th through the 11th, that is definitely the
Spring break.
Okay.
So, as a board leaning towards B, but taking into consideration the school board's meetings.
I still liked the March the 18th on the joint meeting to possibly have our rate decision that evening, because we'll have heard both budgets and we'll have met with the school board. So that's still a possible. I think it should still be a possibility in both versions. Just my thoughts.
Why don't we make that decision in October?
We will, but it was just to give them guidance.
Thank you, I appreciate the input.
Next item is board appointments. We've got Bay Agency Board of Directors, we have a resignation, and We've got a couple people on our list. Has anyone talked to either of these ladies? Yes. Mm-hmm.
Second.
All right. And we've got Colonial Juvenile Services Commission. We have a Velma Benz and a Mary Runnels.
Tony's district.
Yeah, both. Tony, would you like to talk? Well, we've got Petsworth and Ware. Yes, sir.
I am familiar with Ms. Reynolds. As she states in her comments, she worked for the division, so on a professional level, I know her.
Okay. Do you want to nominate her, or would somebody like to talk to Ms. Benz also? It's up to you.
I'd like to nominate Ms. Reynolds.
All right. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We did. County attorney items. Glad to have you.
We put him to work today.
At least you can use commas. Boards and commission reports. Supervisor discussion. Last item is a closed meeting for consultation with legal counsel regarding probable litigation and a specific legal matter, specifically DEQ notice of violation. Mr. Wilmot, would you read us into closed session?
Whereas the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors desires to discuss a particular subject in closed meeting during the course of its meeting of September 3rd, my dad's 95th birthday, 2024, and whereas the nature of the subject is consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff pertaining to probable litigation and consultation with legal counsel regarding a specific legal matter pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A7 and 8, specifically DEQ Notice of Violation Number W2024-05-P-0001, Permit Number VA 0078778, Water Treatment Plant Discharge Exceedance. Now therefore be it resolved that the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors is hereby convened in closed meeting for the purpose herein expressed pursuant to the legal authority herein recited.
So moved.
Ms. Steele?
Mr. Bazzani? Yes. Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Dr. Orth? Mr. Smith? Mr. Hutson?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe? We're in closed session.
Session.
Yes, sir. Whereas the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors has completed its discussion in closed meeting and now desires to continue its open meeting, and whereas only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed meeting, and the only subjects heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting were the matters identified in the resolution by which it was convened. Now therefore be it resolved that the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors does hereby reconvene an open meeting at its meeting of September 3, 2024, and certifies the matters set forth in Virginia Code Section 2.2-3712D.
So moved.
Ms. Steele?
Mr. Nicosia? Mr. Gibson? Nope, absent, they left. Dr. Orth?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Hutson?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Bazzani?
Only one other item on the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned.